Hey, what's happening, guys? chumq back again with another video. I recently unboxed one of C21's latest Precon decks, a Prismary Performance, with the lead singer being Zephi Thunder Conductor. I just wanted to do a upgrade video of the Precon deck, and so I've loaded the deck list into Architect, and we're going to make a few swaps out and a few swaps in. Budget will be $50 for this upgrade. First thing I want to do is change the lead singer, Zephi Thunder Collector. And really, when I look at this deck, I want to build it around Veyran, Voice of Duality, which is fitting because voice and lead singer go hand in hand. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to make Veyran the lead singer, and we're just going to swap Zephi out. Here we go. And he'll be the first cut we'll make. So the deck will be made around Veyran rather than Zephi. Next thing we'll do is we'll just have a look at the sorceries. There's a few that I want to cut here. I'll start first with Volcanic Vision. It's a 7-drop sorcery. You return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and it deals damage equal to the card's mana value to each creature your opponents control, and then you exile Volcanic Vision. Reason why I'm taking this out is I want to keep the mana curve a little lower because we're using Veyran over Zephi. I'm taking out a lot of spells with high mana value costs. Next will be Treasure Cruise. I love this card. I played it a lot. But in this deck, I don't really want to have a lot of high CMC cards. And although you can delve this down, I do want to keep cards in my graveyard because there are some cards that I will use to cast things from the graveyard. So I don't really want to be delving cards from my graveyard. Next, I want to take out the Elemental Masterpiece. It's another big casting cost spell. 5 generic blue-red. It's a sorcery, and you create 2 4/4 blue, red, and elemental creature tokens. You can also pay Is It to discard it and create a treasure token. Still not in the strategy of Veyran, probably with Zephi with that big casting cost, but we really want to gain it. We really want to get the casting cost or the curve down for this particular build. Next, I want to take out Call the Skybreaker. It's another 7-drop sorcery. You create 5/5 blue and red elemental creature token with flying, and you can retrace it. So again, reason why I'm cutting that is really the mana curve. We want to keep it lower and more efficient. And then I want to take out Apex of Power. Now, this is a 10 casting cost spell, 7 generic triple red sorcery. Exile the top 7 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among them. And if this spell was cast from your hand, add 10 mana of any one color. Now, that is an over-the-top spell that I would love to play. But 10 mana is a little hard to get to. And as I mentioned, I am really wanting to get more efficient spells out, so I can capitalize on the Magecraft and the ability of Veyran. But otherwise, this seems like a pretty over-the-top spell that I'd love to cast in another type of deck. And then finally, I think I'll chuck out the Aether Gale. This one, you need to have 6 targets, 6 non-land targets permanents to return to the owner's hand. And so sometimes, if you don't have 6 non-land permanents, sometimes you also have to target some of your own if you can't find it with your opponents. So yeah, for that reason, I'm taking that out. Okay, next I want to take out Planeswalker Jaya Ballard. It's a 5 casting cost or mana value Planeswalker that doesn't really add to the strategy of Veyran. So I'll be slotting in some other Planeswalkers that might do a little bit better here. And then under the instance, probably the first thing I'll cut is the Traumatic Visions. So it's a 5 mana value counter spell that you can use to basic land cycle, which means that if you don't need it, you can discard it and then search your library for basic land, put into your hand. I'm probably going to get better efficient counter spells, and so for that reason, 5 is too much for just that ability, and I want to cut that out. Next, let's get the Dig Through Time. Okay, another great card, but for this particular build, I'm not really wanting to delve any of the cards. And also, this deck will draw you a lot of cards, so we don't really need this effect here. So I'll just take that out. But otherwise, a great card. For the enchantments, I love that there's Swarm Intelligence. This one is actually a cheap enchantment in terms of cost, like it's 40 cents in TCG, but this thing does a lot in games. You know, it's a 7-drop enchantment that lets you cast whenever you cast your instant or sorcery spell, you may copy that spell and choose 2 targets for it. This is an insane card, and it's surprising that it's such a cheap card. Metallurgic Summoning is also another good one. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create an XX colorless construct artifact, where X is the mana value, and it also has another ability where you exile it and you return all instants and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. Activated only if you control 6 or more artifacts. So those are great enchantments to put here with Veyran. But I would probably take out the Sunbird's Invocation. It is a good enchantment, but it's 6 mana. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards of your library. Now, X is really going to be a lot smaller because I am substituting a lot of these high mana value cards for lower ones. So sometimes you might get a spell with 1 converted mana cost or mana value, and you're only really looking at the top 1 card. So for that reason, I'm taking it out of this build. And then let's go now to some creatures. For creatures, one of the first things I'll cut out, well, we did cut out Zephi because we did change it around. But moving around, let's have a look and see what other creatures we can take out. Probably we can start with Octavia. Now this is a flavor win. This is an octopus named Octavia, and there are 8 instances of 8 within this card, which I think is a great flavor win. But you know, for this particular build, that's such a high casting cost, and it doesn't really add to the overall strategy. So although I love the flavor design of it, I am taking it out because it's just not synergistic with the deck strategy. Next, let's take out Nahu Meha, Master Wizard. It's not an entirely full wizard tribal deck, although it does. She's able to copy spells, instants, or sorceries, and then it pumps up other wizards. Because this is not really fully wizard tribal, I would like to take this one out and slot something better. After that, I'm gonna grab the Living Lore. Yeah, not really contributing to the overall strategy, so we can take that out. And then Inferno Project. This is a 7-drop with Trample, and it enters a battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total mana value of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. And if you heard me just mention a few times already, I am cutting the larger mana value cards, so this might not end up being too big as a result. So for that reason, let's take it out. And then we can probably take out the Erratic Cyclops as well. It's a 4 mana value 0/8 trample. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Erratic Cyclops gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the spell's mana value. And again, it is a lower mana value curve that I'm trying to achieve, so I'm going to take that one out. Other than that, we can probably take out the Crackling Drake. It's a blue, red, star 4 for flying. Its power and toughness equal to the instants and sorcery card zone in exile, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So, you know, it's an okay card, but I think we can do better. Okay, so now we've got a few more. I think what we can do is we can look at, let's see here, the lands. Let's take out Temple of the False Gods. Again, this card is giving me more grief than it has upside, so for that reason I'm taking it out. And that leaves us with 36 lands, which is pretty decent. And while we're on the lands, I do want to slot out some lands here because these ones come into play tapped. So the deserts, I'm going to slot them out. And I'm going to just add an island and a mountain in place of it. And probably while we're at it, I'm just going to grab the Blighted Cataract and the Mage Ring Network. Is that the one I want? Yeah, let's take that one out. And I'm just going to add 2 more islands and 2 more mountains. So bring it up to 36, okay? And by taking out these lands that tap when it enters the battlefield, you know, just makes it a little bit more quicker for us to cast the spells that we want. Alright, so next up, I'm just gonna have a look at the artifacts. Now, I love that they've reprinted the Talisman, the Soul Ring, Pyromancer's Goggles, great reprint. Adding one red, and it copies the spell, and then you can choose new targets, so that's a great addition. Mind Stone, another good mana rock. Letter of Acceptance is okay. Is it Signet? That's good. Hedron Archive is okay. Probably I'll take out the Elementalist Palette. Or is that how you say it? Palette, yeah. So it's a 3 generic. Whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, put 2 charge counters on it. And you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. And tap it again to add 1 colorless for each charge counter on it. And you can only spend mana on costs that contain X. And this deck really doesn't have much X cards. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and Muse Vortex is one. So it's something that's not going to synergistically work with this. So I'm going to take that one out. Alright, so with those cuts, I'm going to give some recommendations of what to put in. And first, we'll start off with Gitaxian Probe. Now, this is a great spell. You can cast it for Phyrexian mana, which is either 2 life or blue. Okay, so it's a sorcery that lets you look at target player's hand, and it lets you draw a card. So great enabler for Veyran. And this was printed in New Phyrexia. So quite an old card, but still a goodie. Next, Preordain. Great. One drop sorcery, gets you to scry 2, then draw a card. This one was reprinted recently with Commander Legends. 81 cents, so you can pick that up cheaply. Next, we have Pongify. Another efficient spell. 1 blue instant, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated, and its controller creates a 3/3 green ape creature token. Recently reprinted in Time Spiral Remastered, so you can get a few of these up. Currently going for $1.70. Rapid Hybridization, another great efficient targeted destruction spell for 1 blue. It's an instant, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated, and its controller creates a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token. So great efficient targeted removal spell that works great also with Veyran's triggered ability. This one was recently reprinted in Commander 2021. It's $1.29. Counterspell. Alright, so Modern Horizons 2 announced that Counterspell will be reprinted, so you can probably pick up a few there. But also Strixhaven recently reprinted the Counterspell in a Mystical Archive treatment. This is just a great overall efficient classic Counterspell. 2 blue counter target spell. I mean, what else can you ask for? So great to jam it into this deck. Next, you have Dramatic Reversal. This is a 1 generic 1 blue instant that gets you to untap all non-land permanents you control. But pairing this up with an Isochron Scepter is really cool, especially if you can do infinite mana. You can also have infinite triggers as well. Isochron Scepter, quite a bit pricey, but this is actually a good artifact to put in. It's 2 to cast, 2 generic. It's an artifact with imprint. And when Isochron Scepter enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. And later on, with that imprinted card, if you pay 2, tap it, 2 generic and tap it, you may copy that exiled card. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So yeah, if you can happen to come up with infinite mana and imprint Dramatic Reversal on it, that's infinite cast triggers. But still, you can even put your Rapid Hybridization, Pongify, a Preordain, a Gitaxian Probe. All of these spells that are 2 and under on it will be great for targets for Isochron Scepter. So this is a great card to put in. Now, it was reprinted in the list, one of the list cards. Double Master saw reprinting, so there's a few. It's hovering a little bit over the $10 mark. So this is one of the pricier recommendations, but it's going to be great in this Veyran deck. Next is Frantic Search. It's a 2 generic, 1 blue instant that lets you draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. And the bonus on top of that is you untap up to 3 lands. So you're basically rummaging for free. You draw 2, then you chuck 2, then you untap 3 lands. So this is a great spell to add for Veyran. Next up, we have Mizzix Mastery, 3 generic 1 red sorcery that lets you exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. Now, for each card exiled this way, copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Then you exile Mizzix Mastery. But you can also pay the overload cost of 5 generic and triple red, and when you do, you change all instances of target with each. So all of the instants and sorceries in your graveyard you can cast for free. And this can go ham. This is balls to the walls when you cast this, especially if your yard is filled with instants and sorceries. Lots of triggers from Veyran and other cards that have synergies. This is an auto include in this particular deck. We saw a recent reprinting in Strixhaven, Mystical Archive. Great art. So you're looking at probably about $5 to $6 for this particular one. Next up, another counter spell, Sublime Epiphany. This is 4 generic double blue and instant with 5 different modes. You can first counter target spell, and you can choose one or more. The first one is counter target spell. Next, counter target activated or triggered ability. Next, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then you can even create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. And finally, target player draws a card. So normally when I'm casting this card, I get to do 4 out of the 5. Sometimes you just don't have any activated or triggered ability that you can counter. But using it to counter spell, then bouncing a non-land permanent, and then creating a token of your creature and drawing a card for 6 mana is value. This was printed in Core Set 2021. It's currently hovering around little over $3. For creatures, Goblin Electromancer. It's 1 blue, 1 red for a 2/2 Goblin Wizard that lets you have instant and sorcery spells cast 1 generic less to cast. So for that rate, I think that's good. Gets you to reduce the casting cost of all of your spells. So, well, not all, but just the instants and sorceries. And this is an instant and sorcery heavy deck, so why not jam this guy in? Not so expensive. You're looking at probably under 15-20 cents. It has seen a few reprintings, so it shouldn't be hard to find this particular one. Next is Krark the Thumbless that recently got printed for the first time in Commander Legends. It's a 1 generic, 1 red legendary Goblin Wizard that's a 2/2 with an ability that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, return that spell to its owner's hand. If you win the flip, copy the spell, and you may choose new targets for that copy. It also has partner, but that's irrelevant for what we're doing. It's really this ability here. So we don't really care if we lose the flip, because then we can recast a cheap spell, which will then trigger Veyran again in other synergistic cards. But if we do win the flip, we do have the upside of having it copied, and we can choose new targets. So either way, it seems like a great card for the overall strategy of this deck, and it's only $1.50. You can also get the etched foil treatment, a little bit more expensive, looks nice, for about close to $4. Young Pyromancer, the next creature we're going to jam into this deck. A great addition. I mean, this is a classic card. It's been reprinted quite a few times. It's not that expensive. It's 1 generic, 1 red, 2/1 human shaman. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. And who wouldn't want to get free 1/1 red elemental creature tokens while you're casting instants and sorceries anyway? So yeah, definitely great. Will produce a lot of good blockers, but also attackers. So you can start out early with all these cheap mana spells that we're casting, create a little army of blockers and attackers. Bergi, God of Storytelling, recently came out in Kaldheim. We're looking around about maybe $6-7. The alternate art, alternate border one looks great. If you can pick that up, even better. It's a 2 generic, 1 red, 3/3 God. And whenever you cast the spell, add 1 red. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. It also has creatures you control can boast twice during each of your turns rather than once, which is not something this deck is going to do. The top ability is what we want it for because we're going to try to be casting a lot of spells. And if you build it as a storm deck, you can generate a lot of extra red mana that you can use to cast more spells. So Burgi is an insane card to add here. And it also has the flip side of the MDFC. It's Harnfell Horn of Bounty, 4 generic 1 red legendary artifact. You discard a card, and when you do, you exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. So either one will be good, but really, if you want to generate a high storm count and have a lot of extra mana, this would be a good side to play. Next, we have the Archmage Emeritus. Recently came out in Strixhaven. It is a 2 generic blue human wizard that has the ability Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant sorcery spell, draw a card. And we're going to be casting a lot of spells here, and we'll be drawing a lot of cards off this Magecraft ability. So yeah, auto include Archmage Emeritus. We also have Melek Izzet Paragon. Great card. It's actually very cheap, pre-printed in Commander 2020, 2015. Dragon's Maze. You see, you can get it for under $1, under 50 cents. And what it does, it's a 4 generic blue-red, 2/4 weird wizard. It's a weird wizard, and it has a few abilities. The first one is you play with the top card of your library revealed. Okay, so it's like an Oracle of Moldaya, and then you may cast instant and sorcery spells from the top of your library, which is great. And also, and that's not it, when you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your library, copy it. You may choose new targets for that copy. Wow, this card, for its price and what it can do, just put it in. It's gonna, create crazy plays. We have Saheeli Sublime Artificer. This is a planeswalker, 1 generic hybrid mana. Is it? Starting with 5 loyalty counters. It's got a static ability. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. And its -2 ability is whenever you target an artifact you control, becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So just the static ability that it has is already great. For 3 mana, you're just casting spells, non-creature spells, and you can get colorless servo artifacts. And you've got that -2 ability that you can use from time to time. Secret Lair Drop, if you can get this, that's a pretty good alternate art version of Saheeli. Looks like a stained glass window. We also have these War of the Spark Japanese alternate art, so you can pick that up. But the regular version, you're probably looking at around 39 cents, less than 50 cents. Great to pick that up. Then we have Ral Storm Conduit. Ral Storm Conduit is 2 generic blue-red. It's a planeswalker with starting loyalty at 4. It's got a static ability. You gotta love those static abilities. It just sits there, and when something happens, it triggers. And so whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Ral Storm Conduit deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So you can have a lot of 1 damage flying around because we'll be casting a lot of spells here. The +2, you scry 1, great. -2, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for that copy. Great to have with Veyran. There are builds where you can go infinite and then just ping out a person. Normally if you use Fork and Twin Cast, that will do it. But this deck isn't really using that, but you can jam those 2 spells in if you want to go infinite and just deal 1 damage to each opponent forever. Okay, and then we have this great legendary enchantment that doesn't cost much, which is really baffling because it's a 2 generic blue legendary enchantment that says if you would draw a card except the first one you draw in each of your your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. And so you draw your first card, great, you have another spell that'll let you draw another card. Instead of drawing 1 card, you get 2 cards. And that is crazy. It's only also about under $3, which is crazy. So pick this up if you can. If your deck allows you to draw cards. This is just going to get you to draw even more cards. Finally, we've got Double Vision. Double Vision is a 3 generic red enchantment that whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, copy that spell. Okay, and you may choose new targets for that copy. This is just another great staple to have in spell slinger decks. Your first instant or sorcery, you cast it, you get to copy it, and you can choose new copies for it. And it's also not that expensive. Printed in Core Set 2021, it's about $1.20. So yeah, great card to pick up and add to this deck. And so that's what this new deck will look like. I've taken about 20 cards out, put these 20 in, and I'm going to leave a link to this Archideck build in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you put in, what you take out, and I'll see you guys again in the next video. Thanks for watching.